This is part 4 of a 6-part series on how to build the Satsuma AMP in my summer car. If you missed the beginning of the guided series or you want to watch the rest, just click on the top right corner of your screen to access the full playlist. Now enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to, this is actually now part 4 of the my summer car Satsuma build guide. We're now gonna build the engine, okay? And this is actually post-recording me. You could probably tell by the new microphone, or it's actually an old microphone that I have. My microphone actually failed during recording. In the original audio file you could probably hear it, because my microphone got quieter and quieter and quieter. Anyway, back on topic. Now, again, this is post me recording my voice now, and as I'm literally recording what I see off of the screen in Vegas Pro now. So, last time around we built the chassis of the Satsuma AMP. This time we're building the engine. So, first thing you want to do, of course, is take the engine block, put it upside down, and then you gotta pick up the crankshaft, which is right there. Just plop it in there. It fits right in. Just like that. Alright. Next thing are the 3 main bearings. They're already sorted there. Just take the left one, put it on the far left side of the engine. Same with the middle one and same with the right side main bearing. Now again, I will show on the screen what kind of bolts they are in text. However, again, these main bearings, they're 9mm bolts, so you just take your ratchet set and bolt them in. There's 2 bolts on each side. On the main bearing, on each main bearing, that's what I meant to say. So you just turn them to screw in, and there you go. Up, down, up, down, up, down, as I already showed in the last video. With that done, you turn the engine back upside down and take the pistons. Now, from left to right, it is piston 1, 2, 3, 4, as you might imagine. So, to take piston 2 here, and it goes into the second slot. As you can see, left would be piston 1, to the right of that, piston 3, piston 4, yada yada yada. So with that, you now just take piston 1, piston 3, piston 4, put it in. You just put them in any order you like. It doesn't really make a difference. They fit right in. And they are getting fitted with 7mm bolts, I think. So in order to do that, you just grab the block again, put it on upside down. You see the you see the nuts right there. You take your 7mm bolt and you screw it right in. That's basically, it's as easy as that. And remember, you're gonna use the 7mm bolt ratchet a lot. A lot of stuff is bolted in with a 7mm bolt. So that's basically how you want to do that. So let me just sit the fuck up right here. Alright, with that done, you turn the engine back up on its side, on its correct side, and there's no need to turn the engine over for quite some time actually, until we manage to put the oil pan on. Anyway, next thing is the, good old crispy head gasket. And after that, you put in the cylinder head. Cylinder head, of course, is what houses the push rods in the push rod engine. So you just you take the, I think it's a 7mm bolt again, I think, and you screw them in. There's 10 bolts, 5 on each side, and you just screw them in. So next thing you do is take the rocker shaft, which is this little cutie thing here. This goes on top of the cylinder head, obviously, and this is literally just the rockers. That thing controls the valves, basically, that are placed in the cylinder head. So you just take your 8mm, and there's 5 screws that you screw in order to make sure the rocker shaft doesn't fall off, of course, when you're driving. So next thing is the camshaft, which is that little thing right here. It kind of looks like a crankshaft, but you notice it's just smaller. You put it in there, and you turn the block a little bit to face towards you, and you put it in there with 5mm bolts, 2 of them. You can see them right there. That's where they go in. Plop, plop. And there you go, your camshaft is now installed, but you still have to align it. For that, you use the camshaft gear. You put it on, it goes on with a 10mm or 11mm, I can't remember. Again, I will put text on top so you are definitely informed correctly. It is a 10mm. Alright, so I just grabbed the 10mm there. Again, I'm recording this in post, so I can't remember correctly. Anyway, you just screw this stuff in, but then you have to align it. You see this little notch in the camshaft gear itself? That has to align perfectly with the notch that is on the engine block. Otherwise you get a valve bender. And when you get a valve bender, you know, when a piston and a valve go towards each other, usually the piston wins. And you don't want to have a valve bender. That just completely fucks your engine up, basically. So as you can see, it is now perfectly aligned, which is wonderful. So next thing you can put on is the timing chain. The timing chain is this little beautiful thing. As you can see, the big end goes around the camshaft gear. The small end goes around the crankshaft. So that's fine. On top of the timing chain goes the timing cover. Just gotta find that here. There you go. The timing cover goes on top of the timing chain. And you pull that down with insert bolt size. I actually don't know right now. They're also 7mm. So apparently that's the thing. 6mm bolts. I'm sorry. I completely misread that. That's my mistake. So anyway, next goes the water pump. There you go. That's the water pump. You put that on into that hole right there. That's as easy as it goes. And you have to take the 7mm wrench. Come on, there you go. And there are 5 little bolts that you have to bolt in. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's number 4. There's number 5. On top of that, you just put the water pump pulley. And about the water pump, just a little warning. Again, at least in this go through, I did not buy a new water pump, so I am expecting this water pump to fail at any point. If you did not buy a new water pump, you should be aware of that too. Just buy a new water pump as soon as you can. As soon as the car passes inspection, basically you just want to buy a new water pump. Anyway, you put the water pump on, of course, with the same bolts as the water pump, and then you put on the crankshaft pulley with an 11mm socket. And after that, you take the alternator, which is the little part that I'm holding right there. That thing basically feeds back energy into the battery so that your car doesn't run dry in the middle of it. So it bolts up right there, and what you want to do is loosen the alternator, scroll up as much as possible in order to make the alternator belt, which I have right there lying underneath the spark plug box, fit on perfectly. But first you gotta tighten this little 10mm screw right in the back there. And there is a 7mm screw that is on top right there. Just screw that in. That's fine. Next thing, again, as I said, you want to take the alternator belt and put that on. There you go. It's on now. As you can see, there's quite a gap between the alternator and the alternator belt, which would lead to squealing noises and basically the battery not being charged up properly. You can tighten it by scrolling down. And then you can, at some point, take the screwdriver and screw the alternator in. But you want to do that while the car is running. Otherwise, you risk tightening it too much or not tightening it enough. Tightening it too much would mean that your alternator belt wears out too quickly and just snaps unexpectedly. So next thing you want to put on is the distributor. There's the old oil filter that I mentioned. It just got yeeted through the fucking roof. The distributor goes onto that little hole right there that you can see, where also the holes for the spark plugs go, or are, basically, and you just screw that on with the screwdriver. However, if you want to tune your sparks while the car is running, you need to unscrew it a little bit and then tune it later. That's basically, I will show you that in the next part of the video series, basically tuning your car, getting it to run properly. Anyway, this time just screw the distributor on properly, and otherwise your car just won't start up. That's basically that. On my previous attempt to record this video footage, I accidentally did not screw it in at all, and the car just wouldn't start up, and I didn't know why until it finally fucking hit me. Anyway, after the distributor, you put on the engine plate. My mistake, not the starter. The starter doesn't go on yet. So you just take the engine plate and put that thing on. The engine plate is this little crispy looking thing, and you just put it on there. It's basically like a head gasket. It just doesn't go on with any bolts. So yeah, the next thing is the starter, and I think in this video footage I actually forgot to tighten one of the big bolts. So that just kind of screwed me over. Anyway, you take a 7mm bolt, and then you screw it on. So you want to put both on. I only did put one on. Again, what happened to me was that I kind of forgot to put one bolt on. I'm not sure if it wasn't this one, but when I started up my car, the starter just fell out. That's just basically what happened. So, to find this screw, the inside screw, that's a little tricky, so you gotta be a little sneaky boy, or sneaky girl, or whatever you are, to find it. Somewhere around there. And then you should just screw it in. As you can see, the gear on the starter connects to the clutch. The clutch. Yes, my bad. It connects to the clutch. And that way it starts up the engine. Anyway, screw that thing in. And yes, don't worry about that. That's just physics doing physics things. And yeah, as you can see in the video footage, I actually seem to have forgotten to put the other screw on properly, which is, you know, makes sense, because that screw is where the battery ground connector goes. But you still want to screw it on, otherwise your starter's gonna friggin' fall off. So, yeah, that's basically that. So, next thing you want to put on is the starter. Yeah. The carburetor. My bad. As you know, the carburetor mixes air and fuel and feeds that shit into your engine. You put it on there. The round holes is where the intakes are, and the carburetor goes on with 8mm screws. 4 of them, actually. In fact, one of them there, one of them up there, and the other 2, of course, on the other side of the carburetor. And again, you can adjust the carburetor with a screwdriver, but again, do that while the car is running, please. Anyway, next thing are the exhaust headers, which are the little rusty things here. They go right below the carburetor, and they go on with 8mm screws as well. There's 5 of them, 2 up here, 1 in the middle, up there, and again 2 on the outside of the headers. You might want to replace those headers as quick as possible. Anyway, next thing, just turn the block around again like that, and put on the flywheel. It's on the left, right there it is. Put that on, screw that on with 7mm bolts, 6 of them in fact, and just keep going. In fact, you can also, when you're not in tool mode, you can just scroll up and down on the flywheel and the clutch assembly when you put that on, as I showcase you here. And you can that way you can inspect it actually, which is quite nice. So talking about the clutch assembly, you have the clutch pressure plate and the clutch disc plate, the clutch cover plate, yada yada yada. So you just grab the clutch pressure plate, just put it into the clutch cover plate, like that, what I just showed you, and just mount it on the flywheel. And the whole clutch assembly gets mounted in with 6mm bolts. So just grab your wrench or your ratchet. And there you go. Screw it in. Screw it in. If you feel the need to, you could just get out of tool mode, screw around with the clutch. There you go. Screw that in. Screw this in. Screw that. Yeah, and fuck that bolt in particular. Just check again. Alright, everything's on. And now you can turn the engine up again, on its side this time preferably, because now we're getting to mount the oil pan. That's the part I checked in first part to see if it was damaged or not. Fortunately it was not, so you can just put that on. So the oil pan goes on with 7mm bolts. There's 8 of them, 4 on each side obviously. And then there's one 13mm bolt that you must definitely tighten that one, because that is the oil drainer screw basically. If you do an oil check or oil change actually, you just screw that shit out, let all the oil flush out, put new oil in, and that's it basically. As I showcase you here, just let all the old goo flush out, screw it back in, put new oil in. There you go, you got new oil in that. Anyway, so you can just... I don't know why I decided to put the engine block like that, because next thing is just the gearbox. That goes underneath the engine as well, obviously. So yeah, good on me there. So the gearbox goes next to the oil pan right there. If you want, you can put the inspection cover on, which I'm doing right now. Inspection cover is that little black thing on the bottom. Black thing on the bottom. There you go. Just put that on. Find the right spot. There you go. It just looks better. You can take it off if you inspect the clutch and everything, but it just looks better. So, yeah. That's how that goes. Again, you can look at the clutch. Just unmount that. Check your clutch. If anything's broken, put the inspection cover. Put the inspection cover back on. Put it back on. Come on, put it back on. There you go. And tighten it back up again. So, the gearbox gets tightened with 7mm bolts. There you go. 6 of them. 4 of which are part of the same assembly for the inspection cover, as you can see right here. 2 of them are dedicated to the gearbox alone. And then there is one 10mm block, bolt that you have to tighten. That is next. That's going to the engine block. There you go, right below the headers. As you can see on the bottom there's a little rubber block on the bottom. That's actually part of the engine mounts. So you want to tighten that, otherwise your engine's gonna vibrate like you know what. So next thing, take the drive gear, put that on, and that gets mounted with 6mm bolts. There's 7 of them. 6mm bolts. 6mm bolts. Come on, take them. There you go. Jesus Christ, why was I slow? Anyway, there's one up there, and the 6 other bolts are, of course, around the drive gear itself. So, with that, you basically have your engine build almost finished. The only thing that's missing are spark plugs, the rocker cover, and the the air filter. But now, for convenience, you put the engine on the ground, lower the hoist, and basically align the engine with the hoist in order to mount the engine there so you can lift it up better. And as you can see, my dumbass actually decided to put the engine out the wrong way. So of course it didn't sink. So I just turned it around, and you can hear a little clunk sound when the bolts appear on the engine hoist, and that's where you see, okay, I can tighten it now. You put that with 10mm bolts, 2 of them, and be a little bit careful, because as soon as you tighten both of them, the engine just snaps to the whole structure. So if you're in a very particularly physics fucky spot, that might actually not have the best consequences, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that way you can just mount the engine in the car, which is what we're going to do next time around when we get the car to start up. It takes a little bit of time to get the engine back up to where it was before. Jesus Christ. Anyway, as I mentioned, the only thing that is still missing are the spark plugs, and for that, of course, we have a spark plug box. And as you can see, you can just press F on the spark plug box until all 4 spark plugs are out, and then the spark plug box is empty, and you can just eat it in the corner. I don't care, really. So, for that, you just take a spark plug and you put it in the spark plug where it goes, you know. So yeah, as I'm demonstrating to you right here. You know, there's 4 spark plugs for 4 cylinders. That's really not a big issue. And you tighten them down with the spark plug wrench. And there's a spark plug wrench also in the ratchet set. You just take that thing, screw them down until they don't screw down any farther. And, well, there you go. That's your spark plugs put on. And, well, wouldn't you know it, I forgot something actually at the end. Well, except for the rocker cover and the air filter missing, there was still the fuel pump. So, the fuel pump goes on as well, of course. I totally forgot about that. And the fuel pump, it goes on using 5mm, I think. 7mm actually. My bad. So you see this little hole there? You saw this little hole there where the fuel pump was? There's a corresponding spot, of course, on the engine. So you just put that on there and then you're done basically. The fuel pump is always the one thing I forget while building the engine. So, that's just that. Anyway, now that the fuel pump is on, we can mount the engine, and that's what we're going to do the next time around. So I hope you liked this little video, this part of the Satsuma build guide, building the engine, yada yada yada. If you liked it, share your comment by liking, subscribing, commenting. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button and tell me what I can do better. You can still hit the upper right corner for for the whole playlist basically. And so yeah, next time around we're putting the thing in the car and we're starting her up. Thank you very much for watching. This is post editing Ponzafar, and I'm out. See ya.